My name is Risha. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about books which helped me during pregnancy and postpartum. Books are one of the things that helped me the most in seeking comfort and clarity. One, I needed facts. Two, I needed to understand what I was feeling. Three, I wanted to be more confident in being a mother. So I'm going to divide my recommendations into four parts. The first is going to be pre-pregnancy reads. So these were the books that helped me in kind of understanding whether I did want to become a mother. The second part of it would be practical medical kind of books. So non-fiction about what goes through a woman's body during pregnancy and then after. And then the third section is going to be the identity shift. So these are all emotional reads, fictional reads, which talk about how becoming a mother changes you. And the fourth section is sort of because how we mother depends on how we were mothered. I'm going to talk about the two pre-pregnancy reads I would recommend. The first one is a fictional book and it's Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle. This book is a translated piece of fiction from an author who is Mexican. The story is basically about two friends and their decision of whether to become a mother or not. This book is very reflective and has psychological depth. It talks about this quite monumental decision which women have to make at some point in their life, whether they want to have a child or not. So this story dissects the decisions of two friends, one of whom decides to have a baby and the other refuses to. There's an ache in the story of both these friends, but both of them make you ponder and think how this life-changing decision of whether to have a child or not can affect you. I would highly recommend this book. I really enjoyed it, and I think I needed a book like this to sort of look at the perspective of both the decisions of whether to have a child or not. The second book which I will recommend is a non-fiction and it's called Feminisms of Our Mothers. This is a collection of essays from Pakistani female writers. It sort of talks about this intergenerational trauma that South Asian Pakistani women go through and how this can affect your present, your past, and your future. I just love the honesty and rawness of these essays. It talks about all these amazing, brilliant women around us, our grandmothers, our mothers, who were feminists in their own ways, the way they were fighting patriarchy when the word feminism did not even exist was way different than what we think feminists are. As a South Asian Pakistani reader, this just hit so hard, and I would definitely recommend it to new mothers, old mothers, like women, men. Please read this book because this just explores this tension between culture, tradition, and self-determination. So these were the two books I read pre-pregnancy. I was leaning more towards practical advice during pregnancy. The second group of books which I'm going to recommend are more practical advice because sometimes you need facts, not feelings. So I'm going to recommend some practical books which I read during pregnancy and after. All three of these books are nonfiction because facts. So the first book which I would recommend is A Matrescence by Lucy Jones. This is a book which talks about the impact of pregnancy, childbearing, and motherhood on a woman. It talks about not just the emotional impact of it, but the physical and mental impact of it. And it goes from pregnancy to breastfeeding to the science behind motherhood. Anybody who likes facts would love this book because it is research backed and it is a emotional and challenging look at the impact pregnancy and motherhood have on women. It's definitely an eye-opening read. I absolutely loved it and would highly recommend it to people. This is a very crucial read. This book should come with a trigger warning because there are a few chapters about postpartum depression. If you think you might struggle with that, just don't read it, especially not when you're pregnant or postpartum. I read it during my third trimester. It was raw, but I felt I needed to read it at the time. So the next two books are sort of for that period in your life when you are a parent. The next book which I would recommend is The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did by Philippa Perry. So this book is more psychology backed up, but it aligns with why it's so crucial, those early years of childhood for a child in developing their personality and their attachment for future. Philippa Perry gives her personal insights but also has practical advice and exercises thrown in here for you to reflect on your own childhood and how it has impacted you. And if it has impacted you in a negative way, what can you do to make sure your child does not go through the same things as you did? So I thought this book was really insightful. And again, I have been recommending it to my friends, family, left and right, because I think it's a very crucial read. I may not have liked the tone of Philippa Perry throughout. It felt a bit dated, but I think the lessons in here were quite important. The third book which I'm going to recommend in this category is The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness by Jonathan Haidt. I read this book postpartum as well, and I think I needed it more than my child might, because I have been consuming a lot of content on social media and I see the harm in it. Again, I think it's an important read for current times because a lot of your personal development gets influenced by what you consume and how much you consume on the internet. So this book talks about how the childhood now is different from the childhood we used to have back in the day. The book basically asks you to reconsider what you're doing with your children by giving them access to the internet and social media, and basically asks the governments to step in and take action. The third category of books which I would like to recommend is books on identity shift after becoming a mother. So the first book which I will recommend is Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. It basically tells the story of this new mother who is dealing with an identity crisis after becoming a mother, who is looking at that imbalance between what her partner brings to the table and what she does. It talks about her emotions as a new mother, how it impacts her marriage, and it basically focuses on this major identity shift which happens when you become a mother. Again, I think this book should come with a trigger warning. It does discuss topics of postpartum depression, just letting you know. I absolutely loved it, and I think it's a really good book to understand what a new mom is going through. The second book which I will recommend is another fictional read, and it is The Long Form by Kate Briggs. This was a bit of a longer read, but more slower paced than the first book, Soldier Sailor. It basically looks at a day in the life of a mother with a 6-week-old baby. And I read it when I had a very tiny baby in my arms. It basically breaks up into these moments in her day where she decides to take a walk with the baby, where she decides to feed the baby. And it's a very reflective, slow-paced book, but somehow it is something you definitely will enjoy when you're postpartum because it's exactly where you are in life. It's basically the story of two people composing a day together, and that's Helen, the new mom, and the 6-week-old baby. It looks at the movements, the rhythms in their day, the stopping and starting, the progress they make. It was just a beautiful book to read as a postpartum mother, and it definitely doesn't have any dark themes in there. It's more reflective, but in a hopeful, positive way. And the third book which I will recommend in this category is Mild Vertigo by Miko Kanai, translated by Polly Barton. And it's a fictional story about this woman, and again there's an identity shift there. You're basically in the mind of this woman who has 2 kids. They're not very young. I think they're 4 or 5-year-old kids. But you're trying to understand what's going on in her mind. And it's chaos, basically. It's written in the stream of consciousness style of writing. So all the thoughts that are going through this woman's brain, you're reading them. The banality of her day-to-day life, her expectation from her kids, the expectation of the society from her as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife. It talks about very important themes, but in a more rushed, quick way. When I initially read it, I just didn't like it at all, but I keep thinking about it again and again because I do think it was very interesting and very important. It's more reflective and about the domestic routine of a mother, a stay-at-home mom who has given up her career, who is basically raising 2 kids who are now school going. So now she's starting to question what does she need to do, where does she stand, and yet while she's doing that, she's also very busy taking care of the house and doing a lot. So I really think this is a good book. I would like to definitely recommend, especially if you are a mother with older kids or if you're a stay-at-home mom, because it just shows what your brain is going through when you're a stay-at-home mom. So the last category of books which I would like to recommend is about complex mother-daughter relationships. The first book which I'm going to recommend is A Very Easy Death. It is a short memoir by Simone de Beauvoir, initially written in French, translated by Patrick O'Brien. It's basically about Simone de Beauvoir, who's a famous writer, French writer, famous feminist French writer, when she finds out that her mother is going to die soon. When she does, she basically goes through all the complex dynamics she's had with her mother. And because it's the mother, there's always going to be this attachment, this connection, which cannot be just shaken off. It's emotional, it's painful, it's reflective, it's philosophical. The strong mother she's seen all her life is now trying to stay strong, and yet she's so fragile, so close to dying. It was an amazing read. I absolutely loved it. There were themes of love, loss, and what being a mother means. It is one of my favorite books of 2026 so far, and I would highly recommend it. And the second book which I'm going to recommend, I guess these both count as non-fiction because they're sort of like memoirs. The second book which I will recommend, even though I haven't finished reading it, but I have read 50% of it, it is Mother Mary Comes to Me by Arundhati Roy. Arundhati Roy talks about her childhood and her relationship with her mother. It's a complicated relationship. There's love, there's grief, there is pain, and yet, again, there's this undeniable attraction, connection, because it's her mother. It's a painful read. The way Arundhati Roy talks about this complex relationship she has with her mother who's a very strong, independent, feminist woman in this rural part of India, is fighting motherhood, is fighting this domesticity. And what does that mean for her kids, where the mother is against patriarchy, is against being tied down, is against being basically, from what I've read so far, being a mother, and yet she is a mother. I absolutely am loving this book because, as I said earlier, a lot of how we mother our kids is rooted in how we were mothered as kids. So these are all the books which I read during pregnancy and postpartum. I'm still continuing to read on the subject. I haven't stopped. A book which you can gift to a new mother, especially because it was Mother's Day just yesterday, would be Matrescence by Lucy Jones, and The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read by Philippa Perry. If you have a friend who's struggling with the idea of whether or not she wants to have kids, I would definitely recommend Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle for them. If you're South Asian or any person of color, I think you would definitely love Feminisms of Our Mothers. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I've been meaning to sit down and film this for a while. I think it's a very important video. I couldn't find a similar video on the internet when I was browsing, so I hope this helps mothers out there in the world. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it already, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.